All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's 1 p.m. in San Francisco. It's a beautiful sunny day here. Those that are joining from all over, please grab a cup of coffee, whatever beverage you would like. This is going to be a great conversation. My name is Megan Callahan, and I am the showroom manager of the Cosentino City Center in San Francisco. And I'm joined here today with Katrina Stumbos and Roberto Tiscareno. Katrina and Roberto, can you tell us a little bit more about yourselves?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Katrina, and I have a design firm in Sacramento, California. We specialize in luxury, livable dwellings. I do a lot of construction, but I also do furnishings, and so really the whole thing. We're a boutique design firm. We're pretty small, and I'm the only designer, so really small. And aside from that, I am a mother. I have 2 kids and one on the way. So I have a 7-year-old boy and a almost 2-year-old girl and another baby girl due here, I think in like 8 weeks or something like that.
And they are so cute. I have to say, you make the cutest babies.
They are so sweet and so crazy. And my daughter came in this morning with, I think it was blueberries all over her hands, and tried to get it on our new bed that I had installed last night. So that's my life apart from the work life. That pretty much takes up all my time.
Love it. Thank you. And Roberto, so fun fact, I actually met Roberto, I think like 6, 7, or 8 years ago. We've known each other a long time in this San Francisco design industry. And then you introduced me to Katrina about 2 years ago. So yeah, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, you've worn a lot of hats in the design industry.
I definitely have. So I got started in the design industry in interiors, mostly residential and hospitality design. And then I started pivoting my career into PR and business development, brand partnerships, a lot of consulting. And I currently work for a really great tech company called Made Renovation, which I'm here in our great showroom in San Francisco.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So our topic for today is home and design, the shifting landscape. And I'm super excited to have Katrina and Roberto here because they bring 2 really great perspectives from, the shifting landscape of design from the point of view from an interior designer, and then the point of view from Roberto, who is currently working in a showroom right now. So really excited to dive into that. Our first question is, how have you seen trade-only brands adapt to remote design and selling?
You want to take this one first, Roberto, or me?
You go first, since the question started with design.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. I've seen a lot of brands be much more accommodating, shall we, with working with us now that we're remote. So many of us are home. So many of us can't get into showrooms. And so from shipping samples to my front door at the drop of a hat. I mean, Marcus, my husband, makes fun of me because it's a package every 15 minutes. The FedEx guy comes not just once a day, probably 6 times a day right now. And it's just a constant flow because we've been working from home, even though right now I'm in my office. And so that's been one thing, just super accommodating with everything. And then aside from that, drop shipping actual products places to job sites. There was a period of time where we weren't working, we didn't have things coming to our warehouses because they were shut, but things could come to our homes. And so residential deliveries was our only real option. And typically that's not something that you do. And so there was, showrooms were just shipping anything, and brands, trade-only brands, were shipping things to us wherever we needed it. So that was nice. And then, just keeping it's been nice to, we missed all of our big shows in the furniture world, at least. We missed High Point and Vegas Market, although I think it's happening again. But so all of the companies and our furnishing and hard service companies have been really great about doing online Zoom tutorials and showing us things via Zoom, and just very easy to work with, and making sure that I don't skip a beat on what's new, fresh, and hot in the industry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so from the brand side, I just take a look at what's happening globally, and both within the trade and in retail. And I think what we've seen, just like designers are having to adjust to working from home, I think brands are really looking at how to sell from home, right? And what that really means. So I think a lot of technology adoption, using programs like Calendly, obviously Zoom, even though I feel like at this point we're getting into a little bit of Zoom fatigue between like our personal lives with like Zoom wine tastings or like Zoom TV shows to just like regular sales presentations. I think the feedback I'm hearing from the design community is that they don't mind meeting over Zoom, but they would really like to see their sales reps back in the field when it's safe, and that continue the flow of samples coming out into the market and presenting live, even with social distancing. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And then Roberto, I know you're working in a showroom. Is your showroom open? Are you hosting virtual tours, appointments? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, with Made, I decided to reopen our design studio for our customers and potential customers when construction was greenlit again in terms of being an essential service. For us, it was more about our gallery and design studio really act as a marketing tool, a lot of product knowledge for consumers. We book appointments for our design customers for Made, and we'll shut down the gallery when the customer's here. Another thing I've been doing recently, which was new, was a Zoom tour for some customers that couldn't physically make it down to the showroom. I felt like that was a really great way to assist the customer in moving through the design process without them physically being here, and it was something that they appreciated as well.
Awesome. Yeah, here at Cosentino, we are doing virtual tours for people that would like to view slabs at our warehouse without, coming into the warehouse. They can book a tour online. I've done FaceTimes with customers in my showroom here. So definitely adapting to the current times. What about you, Katrina? Have you done any FaceTime meetings?
So many. Roberto, I could not agree more. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. It was exhausting for a while. Like when when everybody was adapting to working from home, at first I was like, how am I going to do this? And then I got into a flow of, about like 6 Zooms a day, and it was a little overboard. And I mean, my friends would ask to do a Zoom, and I was like, nope. I was on Zoom all day with clients and reps and all the things, because I also, aside from my design work, I'm a life coach, and I was going through certification during this time, which was also done 100% via Zoom, 3 days a week. And that was exhausting as well. Just so much Zoom. So, but with clients, yes, I adapted by doing what I could via Zoom, what I could via virtual. I already do virtual design boards as part of my presentation. It's just usually accompanied with real samples and my in-person explanation of things. And so what I did there was still did my virtual design boards. I sent it to them. Depending on what presentation I was doing, I would ship them or drop off at their house a box of samples, and I would put in really big letters, "Do not open until our presentation," because I didn't want them like going through it and deciding they didn't like something that actually they would love. And so I was able to pretty effectively get my point across. And, you know, things really, I mean, to be completely frank, like I've never been busier. And I mean, Roberto, you've known me for a long time, and I'm the person who does a lot of projects and works a lot. So to say that I've never been busier is a little bit crazy, but it's true. And I think part of it has been my adaptability to this new way, and I've just made it really easy on clients, whatever they're comfortable with. I didn't see a single client or anybody, I think, for 3 months. And now things are different. I am going on job sites. I was always able to go on job sites. I would just coordinate it when nobody else was there. And now it's, you know, the proper social distancing stuff. I'm always masked up, but I've been able to really keep going with, now I kind of have figured out a really comfortable hybrid of online e-design / Zoom meetings with in-person when necessary. And that's been really awesome for me.
I think that's awesome, Katrina. I also love how you already had those virtual boards that you were doing prior to this. Yeah. So it probably eased the transition. Yeah. It wasn't a full black and white change of before and after, but you had already kind of gone a little virtual.
Yeah, I was like half virtual in a lot of ways. I was still like presenting the things in person, but it's just as easy to present it over the internet, you know. And I have dabbled with EDesign Services. I do offer EDesign Services. It's definitely not the bulk of my business. It's kind of just a little piece. And so knowing how I was already doing that, I took some of those techniques I had been using and applied it to my full service clients.
Awesome. So do you see a key difference in approach to selling design services versus physical products within the envelope of remote working?
I think the key difference is that remote working is what we're having to do right now. But I think the preference is to be tangible, right? We work in a tactile industry. We want to touch and feel and smell the materials. There's a really big sense of emotion that comes from the design process, and especially with scale, right? And, you know, I think when I first started in interior design, I was working for a gentleman named Charles Delisle, and this was like when the internet was just starting to touch on e-commerce, and there were some few design brands out there. You know, the feedback from the design team was, you know, get off the internet and get into the catalog and get into the showrooms and really get to know the products and the brands and the salespeople. And I think now, you know, 12 years later, it's the exact opposite, right? Because the showrooms aren't open, they're not available. So we're really forced to innovate in how we present design from a sales side, and tie that into giving the designers the tools they need in the trade to then sell the product to their customer, the end user.
Yes. And I have to say, you know, Made Renovation is set up virtually too, I think a little before this. So I feel like that has probably helped, you know, you guys at your showroom there.
Yeah, I think, you know, being a tech company or tech-enabled company working in the bathroom renovation space, I feel like our business was set up to operate in this manner. We have a team of full-time interior designers and architects that follow a process very similar to what Katrina explained. It just in terms of, you know, digital mood boards. But when it comes to the showroom, you know, that's where the customers really want to come in and touch that, you know, Kohler matte black finish, or they, you know, they walk into our showroom and they see the Cosentino Eternal Statuario on the reception desk, and they they glide their hand over it, and then that's where they fall in love with the materials and really get engaged in the process. So for salespeople or business development people on the brand side, continuing the flow of materials being sent out and samples being sent out, and even as basic as a CFA to the design trade is what's going to help, I think, the design industry to continue to grow. I hear great things from a lot of friends in interiors and also colleagues that own showrooms in the design center or own brands who are saying they're really busy right now. And I think that's a part of it, is adjusting to this new shift that we're all facing. Katrina, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think for me, being in a market that doesn't have a lot of really grand showrooms. Now, we do have we actually have an amazing Cosentino showroom. And so that's in fact, I was there earlier this week and once last week with clients. And so, but in general, I'm in a demographic here that doesn't have a lot of showrooms. We're not close to the SF show, the design center. We don't have a design center here. And so I've always had to be very creative with how I get my point across and how I get them to understand what it is I'm designing and specifying here. And so, CFAs have always been that's like my go-to. And, of course, we do go and touch and feel the faucets and the stuff like, appliances. But I even have clients that are just so used to living in our area and not getting to see those things that they don't even care to. They're like, well, no, if you like it, go for it, And so there's a bit of a different trust factor when living in a city that doesn't have as many showrooms at your disposal. And I'll offer to go to San Francisco and all of those, those options. And typically it's just not something that is a priority for them because their neighbors who built a house didn't do it, or their aunt who furnished her whole house with a designer didn't do it. And so we really depend on our smaller samples. And, when we do go to Ferguson and we see the countertops that are installed there, I kind of, double it up and say, oh, and by the way, this is what your countertop material is. Mm-hmm. And so things like that. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. That really hasn't changed for us.
Yeah. So Megan, this question, oh, sorry.
I was going to ask you for the Cosentino showroom in the design center. How have you seen consumers? Because you're both open to the public, yes, and yes, to the so how have you seen during like appointment only, or even just having the doors open, foot traffic? What's that been like for you?
So right now it's appointment only, and I do have to say that what I've noticed is that everyone that comes in is ready for the material right now. These are projects that they've had in the works, and everyone is just ready to get the remodel done. So that's what I've noticed is the similarity between all of the walk-ins that I've had here. And I don't know if that's been the same experience with you two, but especially right now, I've noticed a sense of urgency where people are ready to make decisions and they want the material now. So it's really exciting in that sense.
Yeah, I've seen that a ton too. It's, I think people have been locked in their homes and staring at it. I know I feel this way too. So I've just been like redoing whatever I could. And, also with this component of people now having their kids home, they're having to rethink a lot of spaces. Built-ins are all of a sudden becoming much more, there was a time where people didn't really want built-ins as much. And I have never heard so many clients say, well, what about a built-in there? And I think what it is now that their kids are home and maybe they're working from home and their husband, there's now this like bigger need for storage and for cleanable counter surfaces, because all of a sudden 3 meals a day in the home is happening 7 days a week. And if you have little ones, they snack like they're, like it's going out of style. And so there's a change that I'm seeing also in what kind of, finishes, but really people are wanting things now. They're ready now. They're anxious. They've gotten over the fear of the economy from at least what I'm gathering, and they're ready to make their home really a sanctuary again, and they want to do it yesterday.
Yeah.
Same. What about you, Roberto?
Because I take a look at like what's happening in retail and e-commerce, I agree with Katrina's sentiment from like the client point of view, and then from the typical consumer point of view, brands like Pottery Barn or CB2. If you think back, we were dealing with all the tariff issues last year, and there was a short supply of goods, and then the warehouses were flooded with goods, and then COVID happened. And I think what we're seeing is, stocks for some of these brands are doing really well. They're really high because people are home. The other thing in the Bay Area, which is more specific to our tech-centric community in San Francisco, is a lot of these tech companies were providing allowances, and they were just giving employees money that said, here's $1,000, go build a home office, it's money for you, use it or lose it, but don't submit a receipt because it just builds your home office. So I think we're also seeing consumers with more money being provided for them to build out these spaces. So companies like Artifox and a few others are seeing a spike in sales because they're e-commerce only. They don't have this like brick and mortar overhead. It's just a warehouse and probably a lean team of folks operating.
Totally. So what are some of the main points consumers might identify with while agreeing to purchase luxury services or goods without meeting in person or seeing the items in person? I think this kind of piggybacks a little bit on what we were talking about, but.
Yeah, I know, like I've said, I've been doing things this way for a long time. I tell my clients right away, you're not going to be able to sit on everything. You're not going to be able to feel everything. That's just not the reality of our custom-made world. I don't buy retail. And so for my client base, and don't get me wrong, they do send me links to retail or, outlets all the time. And I'm saying, no. So there's a lot of knowing going on all the time. But for me, 95% of what I order is custom made. They're used to this. I've done this song and dance of, you can't sit on it, but this is how it's going to sit because these are the dimensions. Now compare that to what you're currently sitting in. Is that comfortable? So I've come up with a lot of these like sales tactics basically. And one of my clients the other day, we were talking about like, I'm basically a salesperson. I mean, that's what I'm doing half the time, and as much as I'm a designer, I'm also selling things all the time. And I have had to get a little more creative on how I approach things. And, but I haven't really seen any difference with how I've had to approach getting that, that luxury service. That really has remained the same for me.
Well, I think that also is a testament, Katrina, to, your clients are trusting you as the expert, so when they hire you, they know that you're not going to lead them in the wrong direction. These are vendors that you've worked with. So when you say, this custom piece of furniture, even if they haven't touched it themselves, or they don't, I think there's a lot. I think that is a testament to the trust that they have in you as the expert that they're hiring.
Totally. Design is such a game of trust. I say it all the time. And in fact, there's another designer I know, and she says that what she wants in a client relationship is a trusting client relationship. And I've thought about that a lot, because it isn't always what you get served, right? It's not always what you wind up with. Sometimes you wind up like basically convincing them to trust you for 6 months, and you're just exhausted by it. And so learning to say no to those clients sooner. If we want to go down that rabbit hole, if you have about 3 hours, I can tell you all the things not to do, and all the warning signs. But truthfully, it is totally a trust game, and I think that comes with that higher price point of those luxury services, right? Like when you're buying an e-design package for $1,000 or $2,000, whatever it is, you're expecting to do a little of the shopping yourself and buy returnable goods. We don't do returns. Like that's not a thing over here. So it's a different service level.
Right.
Yeah, and Katrina's brought up e-design a little bit here, and in kind of just watching how our colleagues in the Bay Area are adjusting to COVID, and the shift that we're all working through. Sabrina Alphin, interior designer in the Peninsula, I saw it on LinkedIn. I just saw a quick post that said now offering e-design, and I clicked through the website, and it seemed relatively straightforward. There's a flat fee for the design service. It's a digital mood board, and it's about space planning and maximizing what's there. No construction, all soft goods, and with links for them to go out and purchase it on their own, which is the opposite experience of the high-end design world, of making sure you're checking on the CFA, the quality of the upholstery, sending it to a receiver that's going to inspect it for you, and then consolidating all that into a truck for an install, or for the whole house, or a milestone install. It is a lot different than e-decorating. And another colleague, Melanie Coddington, of Coddington Design here in the Bay, I think I started consulting with her maybe around 8 years ago. And one of the first projects I worked with her on was styling a photo shoot and art directing a photo shoot for her for one of her e-design clients. And so she's been engaged in e-design for 8 years or so, and just providing these simple packages where it's not really DIY, it's like DIY plus. So we're giving you the style and the aesthetic and the curation. You hire a designer because you were recommended to them, or you found them, and then there's an emotional connection to their aesthetic that aligns with your lifestyle, or at least the lifestyle you portray at home. And I think where we're going, and we're not talking like 2008 level, but I think where we're going is this like accessibility to design, that it is making it easier for consumers to at least test a try before you buy. So work with the designer on the refresh before you really commit to the whole custom interior design project.
Yeah, for sure. I think that overall there's been a rise of e-design within the interior design industry. Katrina, as an interior designer, have you, I know that you did the virtual boards prior to all of this, but have you changed anything about the e-design services that you offer?
I raised my prices.
You should.
So yeah, I didn't have a services page on my website for a long time, because I just, for whatever reason, it wasn't necessary. What I did do at the beginning of all of this was I did put that services page up finally, because my website started getting a lot more traction. I think a lot more people were home, messing around, looking at their house, Googling designers. I was getting a lot more interaction on Instagram. And one thing that I do, or what I started doing, was I didn't used to do e-design packages for anybody local. Like if you were local to me, then you were going to be full service or nothing. And that was just kind of my philosophy for whatever reason prior to this. Like I really felt like e-design was when you wanted to reach me in my style, but you weren't here. And so I kind of changed my outlook on it, that this is just a more affordable package and something that I can now do, because at the time I didn't used to have time to bust out 10 e-designs a week. You know, like I was out on job sites all the time, and without that component and being out all the time, I had more time to provide these e-design packages. So I opened it up to doing kitchen e-design packages. I have a couple, and you know, I'm more known for my like full service design, but I definitely have a group of clients that this e-design package works for them. And it's like kind of minimal hours on my part. I do a Zoom call with them. I do 2 Zoom calls with them, design boards, and then 1 round of edits, and answer questions. And so it is still like, they're still getting that one-on-one like experience with me. But then once it's cut off, it's like, okay, that's the end of the project. Like there's no scope creep. Like that's not what it is. Like, okay, if you're going to scope creep, now we're in a whole new package, you know? And so, so I guess I changed how I was marketing it more than anything. And I increased the price and I increased the value.
Awesome. Thank you. So have you noticed that like has limited access to your job sites or your offices, has it made your job easier or more difficult?
I would say, well, now that I'm back in the showroom, I think prior to that, when I was at home, like I think a lot of people can share the sentiment that I was busier than before. And I was working longer hours working at home because when you're in the office, you can leave the laptop here and, you know, turn off your phone. But when you're home and working full time, you know, from 7 to 7, you're accessible via Slack or Asana for project updates. And I feel like, you know, your natural intuition is to like provide feedback in real time. So I think prior to coming back into the showroom, I felt busier and maybe less productive working at home than kind of escaping and coming back into the showroom here at Made and working that same flow. In terms of job sites, I don't necessarily go to the job sites. But I'll allow Katrina to talk to that, because if you follow her on Instagram, you'll see a lot of job site tours and her heading there.
Yes, I do love watching those, Katrina. You have the best Instagram stories.
Thank you. I've been kind of slacking this week. I've been ordering and pricing and like meeting with clients on furnishings a lot this week. So I haven't been very interesting for Instagram. But so for me, right away, everything just kind of shut down, to be honest. Like clients just kind of froze. And so there was like this freeze period that nothing was really happening. And I was kind of taking it easy. And it was during that time that I worked on my website and I worked on my packages, and I really kind of was giving life back into my social media and really investing in the back end of my business, the side of my business that tends to get neglected, right? You know, it's like you're always working in your business and not on it. And I took that time to work on it. And so that was enjoyable for me. And then once projects were like, okay, no, we're still doing this, it was difficult for a while because showrooms, like tile showrooms, right? The local ones, they weren't shipping samples necessarily, but they would pick them up, but they'd leave, you know, or I could pick them up and leave them. And so there was a little bit of a challenging period of time, but I felt like all of that got ironed out pretty quickly. And I've enjoyed, to be honest, I've enjoyed this more efficient way of working, because if you've ever seen me in a showroom, I'm not like the person that sits there and like small talks. And I'm like, no, get in and out. We've got this. We have 1 hour and 3 minutes, and we're going to get all of this done. And okay, next decision. You know, I don't do the whole, I'm not in there for like these long periods of time. And so for me, it has been nice because now other people are working as efficiently as I like to. You know, I don't need to see 45 samples. Like, I just want the one that I know I want. Or 2. I can have 2. But so that's been nice. And, you know, it was hard for a little bit, but really I think that's all evened out. And as far as going on job sites, construction you know, for us never shut down. I had jobs get delayed, and so I just wasn't even on those job sites. And I've seen a huge increase in furnishings and smaller like updates in homes, you know, like switching out the countertops and switching out plumbing. I've seen smaller updates happening and not so much the big grand thing. But my like full construction that was already in construction, that stayed, and I could go on that. I never was like not able to go on those sites.
Awesome. So, you know, all of us are home more. The industry events have kind of come to a complete halt, aside from virtual, which I do have to say I really miss those. The design industry does know how to have a good time and party. So, without physical access to our industry colleagues, how are you staying connected?
A few ways. Well, obviously, like Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I have this rule of if I'm your coworker, I'm not going to add you on Facebook as a friend. I'm not really worried about you seeing what I post. I'm really worried about what my friends tag me in. But on Instagram, I think it's fair game. And I've seen a few colleagues here and there, and especially in showrooms that aren't in the design center, that are independently operated, where they're open for business. So I feel like Instagram, text messages, calls, some social distance watching, or walking, excuse me. But like what I felt was really key that I wanted to bring up was Jeff and Peter at Hune. When the shutdown happened, they immediately created this new Facebook group for interior designers in Northern California. And I spoke to Jeff, you know, kind of about what his intentions were with this. And his response was he just wanted to create a space for all of us to still stay connected. And Facebook was one of the easiest places to do that. And kind of the accidental like byproduct of that was the interior design community really coming together and helping each other out. I think there's an image that'll be looping through where Jennifer Jones at Niche Interiors, you know, is asking for some trucking advice, and then Georgina Rice, who had her own showroom and is also a successful interior designer and her own workroom, you know, is asking for assistance in sourcing some antiques. I think even at one point in one of these posts, someone was looking for a metal fabricator in Sacramento.
Yes.
I immediately jumped on. I was like, "Hey, Katrina, can you help out this interior designer?" Because it's really about support, right? So like, if I go back to like pre-2008. Designers were really concerned with keeping their resources close to their chest. So like, you know, don't tell anybody which workrooms we work with or metal fabricators. And I think now, especially now, it's really more about community support and helping each other get through this. There's a lot of sharing of resources. A recent post, I think it was either this morning or yesterday morning, was an interior designer looking for wallpaper hangers. And there's like 10 responses and 10 recommendations. And, we went from this era of, keeping everything close to your chest to, no, we have to support all the other subs that we work with, because if we don't, their businesses are going to dry up and they're just going to go do something else or retire. And that doesn't help, the community at large. So I'm staying connected with my colleagues on this Facebook group. I'm chiming in when I can to be of assistance. And other than that, it's just social distance walks and maybe a little social distance wine.
I love that. I completely agree in that I love how the industry has just come together and everyone is really supporting and helping each other get through this time and sharing resources.
Yeah, totally. I know for me, at the beginning of all of this, we had found out we were pregnant. And so not being able to drink, I didn't mind the fact that I wasn't around everybody drinking. So if I'm just going to be honest, the one thing I did not plan very well with this whole COVID thing was the fact that I'm pregnant during it and can't drink. So that's been fun. We really stayed connected. I tried to stay connected as best I can. I will say I'm by nature, and especially during this time period in my life where I'm raising little kids, I'm not as interactive in the design community as I once was. It's not as easy for me to shoot down to San Francisco and go to an event on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's my life has changed a lot over the last few years. And with that is, mommy needs to get home so that I can see my kids for an hour, and my weekends are filled, they once were filled with soccer games and stuff like that. And so for me, it actually was nice because I was actually getting to interact a little bit more than I had been, because I had been missing out on so much by just not physically being there. I almost, for me, I almost felt like I had been a little bit forgotten. And that's not like any oh, poor me sob story. It's totally of my own doing and creating. But it was nice because now I could do the virtual events, and, I was able to do a virtual event with Jason Wu and Brizo. And I was trying to think of the other ones, when everybody was doing all of these events. And so I got to actually interact more than I had previously been in recent history. And so that was nice. I'm trying to think of what else we've really done, but I do very much look forward to the day where I can just go see people and be back. I miss it. I really do. I missed it before COVID, and I will continue to miss it until we can get to see each other again.
Katrina, do you feel like you're still able to get support from your vendors in real time?
Oh, yeah. I honestly think people are more accessible. A lot of reps aren't on the road like they were. Yeah. And so I've noticed an increase in response from a lot of my local reps. I have reps dropping things off at my front porch where they never would have been able to do that, or leaving it out on their front porch because I'm in the neighborhood. I've seen my reps' homes that I haven't seen. They've seen mine now. I needed to pick out a fabric for a sectional, and my rep came to my door, knocked on it. Before I answered, she backed all the way up, left the samples there for me, and then we talked about 15 feet away. I made the selection. She put the order in as I'm cooking breakfast for my child. And I think they've been more accessible. The vendors themselves, even though a lot of people, a lot of the customer service, employees are working from home, everybody's pretty much glued to their computers because there really isn't anything else that is necessarily interrupting them,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And from my perspective, just seeing our account managers and our A&D reps, like you said, they're visiting homes now. And so it's a really interesting dichotomy of we're in this time of, social distancing, but I think in some ways it's made some things more personal where, now the account managers are dropping off samples, on, people's front porches where you never used to see their house before, or just kind of adding that personal touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had reps even offer to drop it off at clients' houses because maybe I couldn't get there and they could do it faster for me. I've had, I work with Mitchell Black Wallpaper out of Chicago, and Marcy is just amazing there. And things are getting shipped out the next day to me, whereas not that it took a long time before, but it's just much more, they know we're all going through a new time and it's challenging for us, and they want to help us in any way. And that's been nice. I've been able to open up accounts that didn't let me open up before. Like that's been all good.
I've noticed too, we talk a lot about brands and showrooms, but there's a whole part of our, like the sales industry and the design trade, the independent sales rep, right? So someone who's carrying a lot of lines as an independent rep who relies on showrooms to process sales orders or get samples. A good colleague of mine, Gray Lux, about a year ago, he revamped his entire website to make it so designers can just go on the website, register, log in, order the samples, and then he can mail them out either that same day or the next day, or even drop them off again if it's kind of like in where he's going to be. So I see a lot of innovative solutions happening, not just from the larger brands, but for the smaller independently owned showrooms, and then trickling down to the independent sales reps who rely on getting commission from sales and getting the product in front of the designers who can then sell it to their clients, the consumers. So I feel like that's been also really great. And the other thing that I've noticed, especially with Hyun, and I bring them up a lot because I think they've just done a really great job in adjusting and pivoting during this time. So even on their website, they have a kind of a header bar that says book the scheduled showroom appointment when the design center is available and open. That the designer can just be independent and do it on their own to keep their own projects going. And then in terms of being more personal, I agree with both of you. I think because showrooms are limiting, or because of the buildings showrooms are in, and showrooms are limiting the amount of customers that are able to come in, I think you're just getting a lot of, as a designer, you're getting a lot of dedicated time and attention, and the salespeople can do a little bit more product knowledge training, and we're not being distracted with other walk-ins happening at the same time. So as the designer, from the designer point of view, I think it's much more appreciative because the phone's not ringing, or somebody else isn't walking in, or a delivery truck is dropping off the next package for them. So there is a little bit more time to create that personal relationship.
Yeah. So this is, I think, my favorite question for today, but with more people in the home all day, have you noticed a change in what people are asking for in terms of space planning or material selection? And I think this is huge because now, you've got two parents that are working in the home, and possibly, kids homeschooling. So you've got a full house potentially of people that are working, schooling, and there's a lot going on. So I know, Katrina, you had touched on people want built-ins, whereas they didn't before. Can you talk about maybe how this is affecting, if people want open floor concepts, or kind of how you're seeing things change?
Yeah. So I know I alluded to the built-ins before, or more indestructible countertop surfaces. Those are the two things that continue to be brought up. That in a home office space, that's been, that's key. I mean, I've had to build a home office space, and I will say with you know, with open floor plans, people are not loving them as much as they once were, because, you know, it used to be that people got home with their kids and, you know, families 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you know, later on in the evening, and they only really had a few hours before bedtime and stuff. And so that was okay to be loud and hectic. You can't have loud and hectic all day long when you have distance learning happening, which, by the way, we started this week, and that is harder than I thought it was going to be. And so you have, you know, distance learning happening, and you have potentially 2 people working from home, and you have all of the other, you know, the dogs and all the activities and the stuff in the house all the time. And so people are wanting more closed off spaces. They're trying to find closed off spaces, like open lofts are now getting closed in. Open dining rooms are being turned into offices with French doors on them. Like, there's a lot of closing off of spaces because there's just people need privacy. They need somewhere quiet to go. And so that's been huge. And other than that, I think durability has been the name of the game. You know, people might, you know, were once okay with a white linen something or other, and now are saying, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if I can keep the kids or the pets away from it all day like I once was able to. Or I'm going to sit in it all day, whereas I used to I was only going to sit on that for an hour a day, tops. Now I'm going to be there much more frequently. No more white.
That's such a good point.
I paint a lot of white houses, and I'm interested to see when that starts changing, because I think it will soon. Fight, because I like white paint.
That's a really good point.
For the bathroom side of things, you know, what customers who come into the showroom really like are the bathtubs. So, you know, as before, when we've kind of been in this area of, like, you know, beautiful walk-in showers, double shower heads, rain showers, steam showers, and now people are really trying to invest in keeping the shower tub combo, because, you know, the kids are home more, so there's more time for bath time. But even if it's a separate tub, shower, bathroom, it's more investing in the soaking tub versus, you know, that utilitarian tub that it was just kind of like get the kids in and out. And now it's more of like, mommy wants her me time where she can shut the door and maybe enjoy a glass of wine or bubbles in the bathtub. Those are conversations that I'm having with people that come into the maid showroom. But in terms of design in general, you know, I think the home office refresh was something that was really big. In San Francisco interior designer Lydia Lyons, she had a post a couple of months ago where she was offering home office refreshes. So it was just kind of like, you know, you don't need to do the whole house right now, but if you need help refreshing the home office, like, just let me know. I'm happy to assist you.
That's really smart, because kind of going back to what you had said earlier, Roberto, about how a lot of companies are giving their employees incentives of, here's some money to do your home office. You know, some companies are work from home until next, you know, summer. So that's a really good idea on her end to you know, kind of cater to that need. That is a big need. And then, Katrina, I love what you were saying about how, you know, white, and me too, my personal aesthetic, I love white couches, white linens, but that is such a good point that you brought up about people are sitting on that couch now for way longer than they were before. So last question that I want to ask you guys, and I could talk to you both forever, but any trends, changes in the type of design, color palette trends? That's what I want to. We have one question, so I'm going to go to color palette trends. I think the fact, you know, of the white topic that you brought up, if you can kind of discuss any changes that you've noticed in color palettes.
Yeah. definitely getting more requests for gray furniture, I actually had a client yesterday say pre-dirty. And so what she meant by that is she wants her fabric to already look dirty. So like oatmeal colors, like she still wanted it to be light, but she wants it to have a air of dirt is what and it was so funny to me because I had never thought about that. I was like, well, this is pre-dirty. Like if some mud got on this, it would be fine. And, she has 6 grandkids or 7 grandkids and they all live really close. And now with everybody working from home, the kids are out over there more frequently. They might be doing school at grandma's, like all of them. And so it's not even just the parents anymore. It's everybody in the family is wanting more durability. And so I think color palette wise, I'm definitely getting requests for less white, more durable paint. I've been asked like, so how durable is this paint? And I'm like, well, it's paint. But there are levels of durability there and there's things we can do. And so I haven't seen there isn't a specific color that has been repeating itself. More so a color that is requested not to have, which would be white. Which the days of all the white kitchens, people are bringing that up of like, no, I don't want the white kitchen, which they already were because I think people were getting tired of the all white kitchen, and I'm all here for it. And as we show a white kitchen, actually that's not even really white. It's like it's a more neutral color, but we definitely are seeing a request for like even wood islands because wherever the bar stools are going to be, people put their feet up on the cabinetry, and now they're going to put up their feet up on the cabinetry throughout the entire day. And so cleanable colors, and so white kitchens, I'm seeing a request for less white kitchens.
Thanks, Katrina. And then Roberto, do you have anything to add to color trends that you've noticed?
So I don't necessarily know it's like a color trend, but it's, where you use color in the bathroom. We've definitely seen customers, open to kind of that, back in the day when you'd say, oh, let's paint this wall an accent color, right? And then we all kind of got tired of accent walls from HGTV. But I think now what people are seeing are like, they don't mind having like an accent tile in the bathroom, whether it's a mix of color or pattern. And then one thing we're seeing that we really like doing is we really tie in like a pop of color into the shower niche, whether it's like a single niche or a stacked niche. We try to take the elements of the design in the room and then bring that into the niche. So if we're doing a blue vanity, then we'll bring like a blue pop of color into the niche that's there.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I'm bummed because we are running out of time. I could continue this conversation for hours with you two. This has been really great. If you want to say any final remarks, share your Instagram handle or website so that our viewers can follow you on there.
Yeah, just thank you. This was so much fun. It's nice to, see some faces and talk about design. And if you want to follow me, Instagram's the best place to follow me. It's just at Katrina Stumbos. Pretty simple. And you'll get to see me and my kiddos, and all the design things ever.
Thanks, Katrina.
And a lot of soccer practices, hopefully in the future.
Hopefully in our future. Yeah, a lot of football in the house is happening right now, which I've had to put an end to. This was really great. Thank you for having us, Cosentino, Megan. And then my Instagram is at the Roberto Tiscareno. But also check out Made at Made Renovation. And the website is maderenovation.com. And you can see what we're doing on our side of the fence.
Awesome. Thank you too. And thank you everyone that tuned in today for our discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.